Hello! Welcome to my YouTube channel. My name is Tyler and this is my April wrap-up. We're gonna do this vlog style like I did in the month of February. If you have not seen that video, I am going to film a little clip after I finish every book talking about that book and my thoughts and feelings on it. Just because I find if I wait till the end of the month, I really struggle to remember any details or thoughts that I had about that book. So I'll see you with my first book. The first book I finished was Persepolis 2. I don't think it's gonna focus. A story of a return. Nope, sorry. The story of a return. This is the second graphic novel comic collection by Marjane Satrapi, an Iranian woman. This is a story about her return to Iran after she was sent to Europe by her parents as like a young teenager. So she returned in her late teen years after some trouble that she had in Austria. And so this talks about the trouble she had fitting in Austria and the reasons why she returned to Iran. And then it touches on the struggle she had fitting back into Iranian culture after spending so much time in Europe, because by this point it had become a lot more strict. Religious laws were codified into country laws. I don't know what I'm trying to say. Political laws, like they were mandated. So there was some things she had to get used to that she was not used to in Europe. And it kind of goes into young adulthood and kind of ends on a note of her understanding herself better and making choices that are right for her instead of what she thinks she needs to do to fit in or whatever. It's really good. I think I like this one actually a little bit better than the first one. I felt like the strips flowed into each other a little bit better. They were also longer than in the first collection, so like they felt more like chapters in a book versus like strips about little stories. And that first one they did get, I think, got longer the further into the collection you got, but these ones were pretty long and they were really trying to get a point across. They felt more like in-depth stories. I really liked the second one. I don't know if I would give it a 5-star necessarily. There was still just a little something missing for me. Not in a bad way. Like there wasn't a time where I was not enjoying myself reading this book. There just was some sort of spark or something missing. So I think it's still only a 4, but it's probably more like a 4.5. Anyways, I really liked it. Hello, it is April 6th. I forgot to record this clip yesterday, but I finished Caste by Isabel Wilkerson yesterday. I don't want to talk about it too in depth here because I'm literally editing a vlog of me finishing it. So my thoughts and feelings are very in depth in that video, which I'll put here somewhere. I gave it 3 stars. My biggest issue was it just felt very surface level. It wasn't exactly the book I was expecting when I picked it up. So it was just different in general than what I had expected going into it. And I'll just leave it at that. Hello, it is April 7th and I have finished my 3rd book of April. And that is Dear Girls, Intimate Tales, Untold Secrets, and Advice for Living Your Best Life by Wong. I listened to this as an audiobook. This book is a collection of letters that Wong wrote for her daughters. to read when they are 21, which is probably for the best because if you know anything about Ali Wong, she's incredibly raunchy, and this book is definitely very raunchy. I really like Ali Wong's stand-up comedy, which is a surprise because usually like raunchy, very sexual stuff is not my cup of tea. However, I enjoy Ali Wong. I think she's very funny. That raunchy comedy style is definitely in this book. So keep that in mind if you're thinking about reading or listening to it. Like I said, I listened to the audiobook and it is narrated by Ali Wong, which I really enjoyed. I like listening to comedian memoir books in audiobook format because you get their delivery, so that's fun. I laughed out loud quite a bit reading this book, well, listening to this book. There were definitely some things that maybe I found a little questionable, but then there was also some very sweet things. I felt like I definitely learned a lot more about her, kind of helped build a more like complex understanding of who Ali Wong is. Like, I'm not an Ali Wong scholar or anything, so like it's not like I've been reading about her whole life or anything like that. So I felt like I learned a lot about her as a person and kind of a more complex understanding of who Ali Wong is. There was also an afterword written and narrated by her husband, which I really enjoyed listening to too, just to get like another perspective on Ali and her relationship with her husband and her children. It was really good. I enjoyed it. I'm gonna give it 4 stars, just because sometimes I was like, what's happening? Yeah, sometimes it was definitely a lot. And surprisingly, this is also a memoir about motherhood in certain places, and I've talked about that's not really something I'm very invested in. So yeah, 4 stars for me. I enjoyed it. Hello, it's April 7th. It is 9:30 at night, and I have finished another book. So if you watched my April TBR video, I talked about Oksi. This is a Finnish, I don't even know how to describe it, because I don't think it's a folk tale. Maybe it's a retelling. It does seem to be touching on like old Finnish mythological gods and characters, but it is basically a little sprite character. I don't really know what she would be called, but I have been referring to her as a sprite. This little sprite character called Porling, who is trying to be a bear cub, and she seems to have some magical powers, mystical powers, but she just thinks she's a bear, and that gets her into some troubles because she seems to be kind of at the heart of this like battle between some other mythological, mystical, magical, godlike beings. And so there are some really sad moments in this book. Actually surprised me. I thought it was like basically a children's story, and I guess maybe it is, but there was one particular part that really upset me. But I really liked Porling. There's some little bear cubs in here that are so precious. I really liked this. If you watched my TBR video, I talked about how this is all in Finnish, and I was using it to learn work on my Finnish basically. So my husband actually bought me 2 copies, an English version and a Finnish version. However, I discovered when picking up the Finnish version, there's actually English translations on the bottom of the page, so I didn't actually need the English version. I will say almost 100% did not pick up most of this story by virtue of reading in a second language, and then also reading like very tiny little English font to try and translate and kind of do that. There's also some parts that I just absolutely did not read the finish part of it. I'm trying to see if I can find it. There are some parts where like the magic and the songs are written in a very bright yellow font that's hard to read, or in like cursive. So I really did not read those finished parts very well. This isn't the best example. This is kind of readable, or more readable than some of the other ones, but it definitely gets a little eye strainy. Anyways, I liked it. I think I'm still only going to give it 3 stars just because I don't fully grasp it. Hello, it is April 10th. I have finished my 5th book. Yeah, my 5th book of April. I finished my solo exchange diary. I didn't really like this very much. It is a manga about her wanting to move out of her parents' house after her first manga was published. Part of the issue, I think, is I really probably should have read the first book, because while it doesn't, like, it's not constantly referencing her first book, My Lesbian Experience with Loneliness, I felt like it would have helped me better understand her as like a character within her own work, because this just felt very, I feel rude saying this, but whiny. And I just didn't really enjoy reading her constantly complaining. And there were like parts of it that I felt like I should have connected with. There are things she says about like her internal thoughts and feelings about herself that I could relate to in some way, but it just wasn't enough for me to like enjoy reading this. And so yeah, I felt like maybe if I had read the first one, I probably would have had a better understanding of who she is as a person, to kind of like understand this diary that she's keeping. And like the art style didn't really call to me, even though I was very excited about the pops of color, which I did enjoy. I like having the black and white with little pink like wash of color in places, but it was basically all 4 horizontal panels down the page, every page. There wasn't anything like super dynamic, and it really was just like illustrating her thoughts. There was not a lot of plot necessarily. Yeah, I don't know. So it's probably my fault I didn't like this as much. It probably would have been 3 stars if I had read the first book first, but I just picked it up on my husband's recommendation. So I don't think I'll be continuing with the series. He had bought the next 2 books, but I'm not gonna read them. Good morning. It is April 12th? No, 11th? What day is it? It is April 11th, and last night I finished a book. Yesterday I got one of my ebooks from the library checked out to me, and I read it all in an entire day. I haven't done that in so long. I can't remember the last time I read a book in one day. Anyways, the book that checked out to me was Things Have Gotten Worse Since We Last Spoke by LaRocca. And to be fair, it was only like 100 pages. So it was like not difficult to read in one day, but it checked out to me like in the afternoon, and then I read it in like 2 hours, like while I was in bed. So that's why I didn't record last night. 4.5 stars. When I gave that 4.5 stars, I realized I wasn't giving my 4.5 stars 5 stars on Goodreads, because I round up all my half-star reviews or ratings, but I wasn't doing that for my 4.5 stars, so then I had to go and fix a whole bunch of reviews on Goodreads. Anyways, so technically it has 5 stars on Goodreads, 4.5 stars. It's my favorite book that I've read this year so far. Wow. The thing that kept it from being 5 stars was that it was so short. So the first, like, I don't know, 20 pages, I just kept thinking about, like, this seems very rushed. These people barely know each other. I found it hard to believe that their relationship would escalate in the way that it did, like, over the course of just, like, a few emails. But once I kind of like really got into the groove of it, I was really feeling the story. I was texting a friend while I was reading it, and I was just like, what the fuck is this book? And I think I texted that like 3 times over the course of like 30 pages. Yeah, I really liked this. I thought I knew what to expect. It is about like 2 women who meet over the internet in 2000, and I thought it was gonna be like a little bit more of a internet like book, like about 2000s internet. It's really not. That just happens to be when this book takes place. So I thought I knew what to expect about a dark book using the internet in the 2000s as like the place, the setting, but I could not have expected where this relationship went, or yeah, I have to say, when I finished this, I was like, I'm in my fucking horror era. Like, I'm all about the horror stuff these days. I am all about it. These are the books that get my heart pumping, my blood moving, my brain firing. I can feel all the serotonin flooding my brain. Like, I can't explain it. Like, this, I was reading it, it was like horrifying, but I wanted to keep reading. And so I would just say, expect more horror reading from me in the future, because I really think that's just what I'm enjoying right now. Like, it really truly is. It's very weird. I did not expect it. I kind of thought maybe that The Troop was a one-off, but I am just like vibing with the horror shit currently. Everything else is like just not it for me. I'm still gonna keep reading the TBR that I have set out for April. And just, I'm gonna keep my varied reading diet, but definitely expect to be reading more horror than I have been the last couple months. So anyways, really liked Things Have Gotten Worse Since We Last Spoke. Really loved it. Favorite book of the year so far. I will see y'all in a little bit. Hi, I have finished another book. I've lost track of what book I'm on at this point. I finished Yearbook by Seth Rogen. Really liked it. Gave it 5 stars. I'm like on a finally reading books I enjoy kick. Wow. I feel weird giving that straight 5 stars when I didn't give, what was the book I just finished? Things Have Gotten Worse Since We Last Spoke, 5 stars. But I don't know what to tell you. I really had a good time listening to it. The audiobook I really highly recommend. It is narrated by Seth Rogen, but it also has a full cast. So a lot of the stories end up having voice actors either playing themselves or other actors playing people of the stories he's telling, which was really enjoyable. I really liked that quite a lot. The stories in here, this book had me cracking up, like laughter, tears down my face at some points, like just busting up. I loved listening to this book. I really highly recommend the audiobook. If you happen to like Seth Rogen's comedy, I think you will like the audiobook a lot. He obviously talks about illicit drugs, so if that's not your cup of tea, you probably won't like it. It's not like all straight weed and like drug humor, because I wouldn't have liked it if that was the case. But you know, it's Seth Rogen, and he's well known for his proclivity to marijuana and things of that nature. So if that's not your cup of tea, you're not gonna like this. If you don't like Seth Rogen, you're not gonna like it. But I really did enjoy it, and there was I talked about in the vlog that I'm also filming this week, I talked about some stories that I liked from it, but today I listened to the last like quarter of it. There's a chapter where he talks about like Jack Dorsey and Twitter and like trying to get them to step up policing of white supremacists and anti-Semites, which was really interesting. But overall, really funny book, besides one or two maybe pretty serious chapters, like that Twitter chapter. I have to imagine there was probably at least another one in there that I can't think of. But highly recommend it. Highly recommend it. If you are a fan of Seth Rogen, I think this is a really good book. Yeah, so I'll leave it at that. Okay. It is April 13th, and I have finished another book. I have finished Sybil. This was on my April TBR, and I have to say, I loved reading this book. This is like right up my alley. I really can't explain why I enjoyed reading this book so much, because it is very, I don't even know. So I talked about this a little bit in the TBR video, as well as in the day in the life video I'm going to post this week or next week. But Sybil is about a woman who has multiple personality disorder and her path to integration, which is getting all of the personalities together into one fully realized self. I don't know how much I want to get into this book in this, because I'm hoping to do a longer video essay about Sybil, because I found this book to be so fascinating. But I'm gonna give it 3 stars because it feels like a bad idea to give this 4 stars, because there is controversy around this book. I have not read Sybil Exposed yet. That is literally like the next thing I'm going to read. So I don't have all the full details, but when you read this, you need to read it with a critical, skeptical eye, because there is controversy about Sybil's diagnosis in this. So I read this knowing a little bit about that. Knowing that there was controversy. So I read it with a skeptical eye. And I think that was part of the reason I enjoyed this. I have a lot of tabs in here of just like things that stuck out to me. And the biggest thing that really stuck out to me, it was just like the psychiatric practices of the 1950s. Sybil was in therapy for 11 years with the same therapist. And there was just a lot of sketchy shit that Dr. Wilbur was doing, that coming from 2022, and reading some of the things, you're just like, what in the world? It's written by a journalist who writes about herself in the 3rd person in like the last 15% of the book. And it's nonfiction, but it's written like a novel, which makes it very difficult to parse what is opinion, what is fact. There were parts where she would just say something would be stated matter-of-factly, and I'm like, okay, that sounds like a fact. Is this the journalist's opinion? Is this Dr. Wilbur's opinion? Is this supposed to be a fact? There are no end notes, so you can't fact check this. So yeah, if you want to dive into this for some reason, just because you are curious, you really just need to be aware of that. And from what I've heard, like some of the scenes are like straight up made up out of whole cloth. There are like scenes from Sybil's mother and father's like childhoods, like scenes with dialogue and stuff, and I'm like, where did this come from? Did the journalist go talk to these people? Did the therapist pull this from sessions she had with the personalities, and then she told the journalist this? Like, it's very sketchy. Like, reading it, you just need to be aware of the sketchiness. But like I said, I really enjoyed reading it. Even if there was like, I don't know, it made me use my brain. I'm looking forward to getting into Sybil Exposed. I have stuff that stuck out to me tabbed, so I'm intrigued to see what Sybil Exposed gets into, if it touches on some of those things that stick out to me. One of the big things at the end of this, spoiler, but Sybil reintegrates and seemingly is living a separate life on her own for years after this therapy session. But from what I know is she like follows her therapist to Kentucky when she moves to Kentucky and ends up living with her at the end of her life. Sybil, or well, the real Sybil, Shirley, ends up living with Dr. Wilbur at the end of her life while she's dying with cancer. And when I heard that, I was under the assumption that she was still getting treated for multiple personality disorder during that. So I'm intrigued to know more about this time period of what, when she was integrated according to the book, and like that. I'm just curious about that time from after the end of the book to when she died, and how much of that is accurately portrayed in like the 8-page epilogue at the end of this book. I will also say, like, in the last 5 pages is when like the most non-fiction-y facts about multiple personality disorder show up. And so like some of it is cited, but a lot of it is just like Dr. Wilbur is at the forefront of multiple personality disorders, and she has diagnosed so many people with multiple personality disorder. And I'm like, is she just doing this for her own brand? Anyways, I don't know if I would recommend this to anyone. This is like, feels like a very specific type of person that would want to read it, and it's like people who listen to You're Wrong About and really like the Sarah Marshall book club episodes. I don't know, if you're like me and you just like want to know the hot goss from 1974, you might be intrigued by it, but I don't think this is like a thing that most people in 2022 would enjoy reading or want to read. Hello, it's April 15th. I have tried to record this clip 2 or 3 times at this point. I'm really struggling, so hopefully this is the clip. I have finished Leave the World Behind by Rumaan Alam. I picked this book up on a Kayla recommendation. She talked about it in her reading the lowest rated books TBR vlog. I'll be honest, I don't think I fully absorbed the fact that the books she was reading in that vlog were low rated books when I added them to my TBR, because I read one other book from that vlog that was just okay. And I kind of feel like this one is just okay. I am going to give it 3 stars. I really don't know what to say. Like, when I bought this at the bookstore, it was half off. And I just remembered, I was like, oh, that's on my TBR. I didn't remember where I got it from or like why I had added it to my TBR. And so when I brought it home, I rewatched that Kayla vlog, and I still didn't know why I added it to my TBR. I went into this not knowing what to expect, really. Like, I read the cover, the like summary flap, so I like had an idea, but I just was unsure if this was going to be something I enjoyed or not. I almost DNF'd it in the first chapter. The author is very wordy, has a very particular vocabulary, and I just didn't know if I was going to be able to handle it. I don't typically like a very verbose style, but I eventually got into the swing of it. And the thing is, what it does have going for it is it's a short book. It's only 241 pages. I finished it in 3 days. it is about a family who is on vacation at a rental house, and then was it the first or the second night that they're there, the owners of the house show up in the middle of the night and tell them that the power has just completely gone out in New York City, and they want to stay at their house. And so it's a very weird book. And it's apocalyptic in that at some point it does become very clear that it's not just like a regular power outage, like something is going on. But I don't even know if you would call it foreshadowing. The omniscient narrator telling you about stuff that was going on in other parts of the world that these characters would never know about. And the future, but not like in a way to give answers, but to highlight that maybe their fear is valid, but they can't know whether it's valid or not. They can't know whether they're overreacting or not. You're not going to get answers. There are no explanations of what is happening at the end of the book. And parts of it I did find interesting in that, like, we have all lived through this global catastrophe that is still going on, really. And we all have to find a way to just, like, make it through the damn day. And we all do that in different ways, and we all have different things that put us over the edge in situations like that. So I did find that intriguing. So it was actually published in October of 2020. So I guess depending on how quickly he wrote this book, it could have been commentary on living through a pandemic. I'm unsure. But I did find that part to be very interesting. But also, like, there was some of it that I didn't need. There was some very sexual parts in this that I was not into. Also say there's, like, some race stuff in this that's, like, interesting, but also can be a little uncomfortable, which, again, is, like, the point. The author is highlighting these tensions that can be created and exacerbated in times of distress and unknownness. But sometimes it made me a little like, ooh. I knew from Kayla's vlog, like, I was not going to be satisfied by this book because the parts that I found most intriguing, she made very clear, like, that's not what this book is about. And it's true. This is not world building. This is not explaining a apocalypse. This is about, like, relationships and dealing with the unknown. If you're wanting to read about the end of the world, but you're wanting, like, world building and lots of answers about why the world is ending, and, like, maybe, like, a hero or, like, trying to build community or something like that, this isn't the book for you. I don't really know who the book is for, but I do think there are people this book would work for. I mean, Kayla, Books and Lala, she loved this book. It is the best book she's read so far this year, she said. So there are people this book would work for. Unfortunately, it wasn't me. I didn't hate it, but I didn't love it either. Yeah, I'll leave it at that. Hello, it is April 17th and I have come with bad news. I didn't expect this. I DNF'd Detransition, baby, by Torrey Peters. This is 100% my fault. I bought into the hype. I remember seeing this on Facebook, I want to say. I feel like I remember seeing it on Facebook, and I haven't been on Facebook in ages, but maybe it was somewhere else. And just being engrossed by the cover, and I knew it was about trans people, and I was like, oh, that sounds like something I want to read. I did not read any of the summaries, really, before buying this book and starting this book, and that was a mistake. There's a couple problems I have with this book. The problem is with me. It's not the book. This book is literary fiction and women's fiction. Not things I typically enjoy reading. Literary fiction, I just like, I read for entertainment for the most part. So like big, grand, overarching metaphor and like very flowery writing that I associate with literary fiction. Not my cup of tea. And women's fiction, I typically don't gravitate towards either because they tend to be more internal stories about like family dynamics, and that's just not typically something I gravitate towards. So that was my first mistake. Second mistake was not reading the back of the book. This book is about parenthood. It's about motherhood. And I can't do it. I have read too much about motherhood and I just don't care. I don't. And so then the third thing is while reading it, these characters are definitely like morally gray. They do stuff you don't agree with. They say stuff you don't agree with. And typically, I actually tend to like that. I do tend to like morally gray characters, but the fact that this is also already a genre and a topic that I'm not interested in, as soon as I really started getting into some characteristics of some of the characters, I was just like, I can't do this. The School for Good Mothers was also about motherhood and parenthood, but I managed to finish because there was this sci-fi dystopian element that I was clinging to that could help me get through it, even though it wasn't very clear and apparent, or even though it wasn't like the driving force of the book. I could cling on to those little sci-fi things and it was enough to make me want to keep reading, but just there isn't anything in here that I feel like I can cling to. I'm interested in reading about trans characters, and maybe there are fiction, or there are books in fiction about trans characters that I would like. I just don't think this is the book for me. And to be quite honest, I don't want to push myself through something I can tell I'm not going to like, and then give a bad review on Goodreads, because I think this is a good book. But I just don't think there is any way I'm giving this even a 3-star, and I would feel bad giving this particular work a negative review because I went into it unprepared. If I had literally read anything about it before buying it and starting it, I would have realized that even though I'm interested in reading about trans characters and maybe a more internal book about specifically a relationship between a trans woman and a man who detransitioned, maybe that would be interested in that if that was like really the like main focus, but that's not what the main focus of this is. This main focus is about, I mean, I guess it's on the back. It's about 3 people. It is about a man named Ames who detransitioned, used to be with another trans woman who wanted a family, who wanted to be a mother at some point. And at some point he detransitioned and impregnated another woman after breaking up with his long-term girlfriend, Reese. And this is like about them becoming like a parenting trio. And I'm not interested. And if I had read anything before this, I would not have bought this book and I would not have started it. But I got sucked in by the hype, which I think is probably fine. I think most people probably don't have the aversion to like parenthood narratives that I do. I think the hype is probably real. I think it's probably actually a good book. It's just not going to be a good fit for me. So anyways, unfortunately it's a DNF for me. Hello, a real quick check-in. I have finished 2 books today. I read volumes 1 and 2 of Blood on the Tracks, which is a manga about a weird mother-son relationship. I think it's kind of horror genre. It definitely gave me the creeps at some points. I saw a YouTube video essay about it and it intrigued me. I planned on reading more of it, but my library only had the 2 volumes. And apparently all the English editions aren't out yet. So I guess I'll probably just stop there and read them when it's finished, I suppose. I gave both 3.5 stars, so I rounded up to 4 stars on Goodreads for both of them. I really don't have much to say because it wasn't, I mean, there was stuff going on, but it's like kind of spoilery, and I didn't really have I don't have a full picture to give you kind of like an overview of what this story's about. So I'll just leave it at that. See ya. It is April 22nd and I have finished, I believe, the 12th book of April. I finished The Lost Village. This is also the last book that was on my physical TBR, so I managed to read 5 whole books from my physical TBR shelf. Anyways, my thoughts on The Lost Village. I'm waffling between a 3 and a 4, which should be a 3.5. I guess it's going to be a 4 on Goodreads because I'm trying to be consistent about rounding up. I enjoyed most of this. I really liked the vibe and the atmosphere. It is a Swedish book, and I have read some other Swedish thriller type things in the past, and they tend to be a little dry for me. So when I realized this was actually translated, I didn't know how I was going to feel about it. However, I did actually really enjoy this. I thought the pacing was right on the money. It was like really good pacing for me personally. It had perfect short little chapters, which I love, especially in like a thriller type book. There's also some paranormal vibes, which I enjoyed. In books like this, they can either go one or two ways, where it's like actually like a paranormal entity or it's a real life thing, but because of the situation, it comes off as paranoia or paranormal. I won't tell you which this book does, but I did enjoy that vibe. Basically, the gist of it is a 4-person film crew goes to a village, a mining village in, I guess, like rural Sweden, where like decades in the past, the whole village had disappeared and there was only a baby left, and a woman had been stoned to death in the town square. So they were going to film like promo material to try and get a like documentary funded, but people in the film crew have like connections to this village, and that's why they're there. And I will say, you basically get all the answers. You figure out exactly what happened to the village, and what the deal is. There's also topics of mental health in this, so I enjoyed it. For most of it, I thought it was going to be a 4-star read. The ending fell just like a little flat for me. A big part of this is like religious elements. So this talks about it being Blair Witch meets Midsommar. I don't know how that's actually supposed to be pronounced. I would also say it reminds me quite a bit of what was that Netflix show that came out last Halloween? The Priest? Is that what it was called? Okay, I can't find it. There was a Netflix show that came out last Halloween that was like a small fishing village, and then like a new priest came to town. And there was also paranormal aspects to that, but then there was also like this religious like cult vibe going on. And that's what this really reminded me of, like, a lot. Okay, I'm back with a very quick addendum just to say the Netflix show I was talking about is called Midnight Mass. It was gonna drive me crazy. I had to ask my husband. He reminded me of the name, and I'm putting this clip here. There we go. I enjoyed it. I had a good time reading it. It was easy read. I wasn't like struggling to get through it or anything. I'm not sure if I'm going to keep the copy just because I can't imagine ever picking it up to read it again. I can't decide if I actually want to give it 3 or 4 stars because it really is like right in the middle, like 3.5. I wish that she had more English works out. She has one other one that came out this year, I think, but reading the summary is like straight thriller vibes, and I don't want that. What I liked about this was it's not like a clear thriller narrative, or like a cut and dry thriller book. It's like a spooky book. I also liked that most of this, it's like told in the present and then in the past. And I found the pacing of that to be really good too. Like sometimes books like this can bumble it where they're like spending too much time in the past or too much time in the present. I found the mix of that to be perfect in this. Yeah, I don't know. I've completely lost the train of thought. Anyways, I had a good time reading it. I thought the writing was good. I wish there was more that I could read from her just because I did enjoy this so much. Well, I did enjoy it enough to like, I want to keep reading. Yeah, anyways, so I don't know. It's either going to be a 3 or 4 star on Goodreads. I can't decide. Hello, it is April 24th and I come with more bad news. I'm DNFing. This is how you lose the time war. Is that what it's called? Yeah, this is how you lose the time war. This book has been sitting on my TBR for a little bit. I got it from a recommendation from Pop Culture Happy Hour, and it really seemed like something I should enjoy, and it's very short. But I could not get myself to read it. I reread the first 2 pages 4 or 5 times, and it was just going in one ear and out the other. I could not read it. I physically could not read this book. So despite being very excited, I'm DNFing it at this moment because I literally cannot read it. However, I did put the audiobook on hold, and I'll try it in audiobook form. I've talked about in the past that audiobook fiction typically does not work for me, but I want to see if it'll work in this situation, being something I want to read, but like physically I'm having trouble reading. So maybe the audiobook will help in this case. So it's a DNF for now, but maybe I'll finish it in audiobook form. Hello, it is April 24th. It's like 10:45. I literally just finished listening to an audiobook. I listened to Smoke Gets in Your Eyes and Other Lessons from a Crematory by Doughty, who has a YouTube channel. She's a mortician, and she talks about death and things like that. And that's what this book is about. I picked it up on a whim after watching a random booktuber who read her newest book, I think. And I was like, oh, that seems like maybe something I would like in audiobook form. I didn't really like it very much. I'm going to give it 2 stars. There were some interesting little bits and facts in there that I enjoyed, but honestly, this just wasn't my cup of tea. 1, I don't think the topic was that interesting to me. 2, it was actually a lot more like memoir-y than I had anticipated when I picked it up. If it had been a little more like straightforward, like straight only facts, it might have been a different story, but I'm not sure. And so while there were some interesting bits and pieces, for the most part, I just didn't like this. I felt like there were a couple parts that like really just rubbed me the wrong way. I do think we probably need to be a little more open about death and dying in general. But sometimes her opinions on stuff, how people deal with death and dying, just came off as kind of harsh and holier than thou to me personally. And you know, and it's not like I have any like formal knowledge or anything, so my opinion probably doesn't really matter that much. That's just how it kind of came off to me, is like it felt like it's my way or the highway, almost like my opinion is the correct opinion and this is how we need to be handling these things. And I felt like maybe there was a little more room for acknowledging that there is like a spectrum of how people will want to handle it and how people can like mentally handle it. I don't know. I didn't really enjoy this experience very much. And I don't think I'll be picking up any of her other books. But it was probably a me issue because it seemed pretty highly rated on Goodreads. So it is what it is. Good night. Hello. It is April 25th, and I have finished another book. I have finished Sybil Exposed, the extraordinary story behind the famous multiple personality case by Debbie Nathan. So, this book is a companion piece to me reading Sybil earlier in the month. I don't know how much I want to get into this because I feel like I could talk about these two books forever. And I'm pretty sure this vlog is already pretty long. When I originally picked this up, I was kind of under the impression that maybe I would do a video essay about Sybil. I don't really know if that's something I want to do or that I am capable of doing, but if you are interested in me talking about Sybil more, I can do a sit-down video where I talk about Sybil and Sybil Exposed. I just don't know if that's something people actually want. Anyways, so Sybil Exposed is basically a debunking of the book Sybil. I expected this to actually dive into dissociative identity disorder a lot more than it did. It really only talked about it in like the last 2 or 3 chapters, and it was more so like side facts almost. Like it wasn't part of the debunking really. Like what DID is was not used to debunk Sybil's diagnosis, which is what I was expecting. This book is really just about the women involved in the writing of Sybil. So that would be Connie Wilbur, Sybil's therapist, Flora, what is her, Flora Schriber? She has a middle name in there, I can't remember. Who is the journalist who wrote Sybil, and Shirley Mason, who is Sybil. And it basically goes from Sybil's childhood all the way to Sybil's death, and really just breaks down the relationships between these 3 women, and kind of the cultural atmosphere of society at the time when Shirley was getting treatment from Connie Wilbur. I took 15 pages of notes on this book, so there are things to be said. If I start talking, I won't stop talking. I'm going to give it 4 stars, because I will say there were still some parts where I kind of felt like Debbie Nathan was still taking liberties in interpreting people's like motivations. And there were some parts where like, so she had access to Flora's records that had been kept at the John Jay college library or something like that. So that's like what the bulk of this book is based on. And I wish she had included, there's one really important part. There is a note that Shirley wrote to Connie, basically recanting her multiple personalities, saying like, I don't have multiple personalities, I'm lying. And she just quoted from it, and I really, really wish that the note in its entirety had been included in this book. However, I do think there are other books about Sybil that I didn't realize. I thought that was like the main Sybil debunking, but this book didn't come out until 2011. And there were other people that were working on identifying Sybil and like fact checking Sybil. So I might go down that rabbit hole. I really don't know. I don't know how far I want to go down this rabbit hole. Like, I don't know if I want to go down DID rabbit hole either, because like the epilogue like made it seem like DID is also maybe a load of nonsense. But it is in the DSM-5, so at least some proportion of psychiatrists think that DID is real. So I don't really know if I want to go down that or not. Like, it was very minimal information about it in this book. And so like, while I'm curious, I really don't know if it's actually that useful in understanding the Sybil story. So I don't know if I want to go there. Anyways, I'm gonna give it 4 stars. Those are my thoughts, my feelings. If you happen to want to hear me ramble about Sybil a little bit more, let me know. And I'll leave it at that. Hi, it is April 27th. I finished a book last night. I'm gonna try and keep this clip short because this vlog is humongous and I'm struggling to edit it. I'm hoping this is gonna be the last big time struggle editing. So anyways, I finished The Absolutely True Diary of a Part-Time Indian by Sherman Alexie. I actually like this quite a bit. I gave it 4 stars. I am gonna say I think this leans more towards middle grade versus YA, and I think it's really just the subject matter that makes it YA. It reads very easily. It has illustrations in it which kind of contribute to that middle grade feel for me personally. The writing is very simple, but not in a bad way. It's really easy to read. It's really enjoyable read. It is about a boy named Junior who lives on Indian reservation in Washington, the Spokane Indian reservation, I think. And it just like covers a year in his life. His freshman year in high school, he chooses to go to a school in a white town instead of a school on the reservation. And it just talks about that. So there are topics of like alcoholism, there's topics of racism, there's definitely some crude language. The R word is used a ton in the beginning, so, you know, warning. There is talk of like masturbation, and the language can be pretty crude at points. So I think that's what makes this more like YA. It's like heavier subject matter, but it's written in a very simple, easy to digest way. Anyways, I enjoyed it. I will say, after I finished this book, I realized the author had been like Me Too'd. So that might be something you want to consider before picking this book up. But otherwise, it is a 4-star read for me. I had a good time. Maybe you'll like it. Maybe you won't. Anyways, I'm going to leave it at that. Okay, I just read the first volume of Heartstopper. I read chapters 1 and 2 on Webtoons, and oh my god, the cliffhanger is so rude. It was a little slow for me. The whole first chapter, I was like, this is bland and I don't get it. But chapter 2 really kicked it up a notch, and I definitely get it now. I want to immediately go into volume 2, but I need to not film any more clips or read any more clips or read any more books in April, so I can like actually edit this incredibly long vlog and get it up on time. So volume 2 will have to wait till May. But oh my god, if you have any more recommendations for webtoons in the vibe of Heartstopper or Lore Olympus, please let me know because I am eating it up. Okay, bye. Greetings! It is April 29th. I am ending the vlog early because I need time to edit this behemoth. I'm hoping to keep this stat section short, sweet, simple. So let's get into it. First, I was not successful in reducing the number of books on my physical or on my Goodreads TBR shelf. I don't know what to say about that. I keep watching booktube videos, I keep adding books to the list, I keep going to bookstores and buying books. So there's that. I read 16 books this month, which is like an outrageous amount of books. I've never read so many books ever in one month. So really pleased with that. I managed to mostly read physical books. I listened to 3 audiobooks and I had 4 digital books. 1 was an ebook and the rest were like graphic novels. So there's that. I also in general read 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I read 6 graphic novels this month. So that's quite a bit. I'm not going to complain about it. A book is a book. So there's that. I read 6 nonfiction books, 3 were audiobooks, and 3 were physical nonfiction books. 1 was Caste, and then Sybil and Sybil Exposed. Very big into my Sybil era, I guess. And the rest were fiction. So 1, 2, 3, 4. 4 just plain regular fiction of some sort. I DNF'd 2 books. 1 I will be trying again as an audiobook. It's just very popular, so I'm waiting for my hold at the library. And then my average stuff. On average, it took me 6.5 days to finish a book. If I take out Caste, which took me over a month to read, if I take that out, it was 4.5 days, which makes sense since I was reading a lot of graphic novels. So there's that. And I listened to a couple audiobooks that I read very quickly. So there's that. And then my star rating was 3.6 stars per book. I'm so happy with that because March and February, both those months, the average was 3.1 stars. So I added a whole half star to my ratings this month. And I really felt it. Like I read a lot of books I enjoyed this month. So I'm really, really happy that I had higher ratings this month because that makes me want to keep reading. Reading books that are actually good and I'm having fun read. Anyways, so I think that is the end of the vlog. I read 1 book by an Indigenous author this month. I hope to at least read 1 more next month and just kind of keep going that way. I genuinely can't remember any of the other goals I set for this year, so that's that. Yeah. Okay. I will see y'all in the next video. Bye.